It's Scoops Week here at the Metropole Grid, and the kind people at NISEI have given us 3 upcoming Jinteki cards to reveal. And reveal might just be the key word. Hyoubu Institute is the upcoming Jinteki identity, and it lets you go ahead and look at the cards in the runner's grip or see what's coming up on the top of their stack. Now, information is so important in the game of Netrunner, and Hyoubu Institute is going to even give you a credit for your troubles. Saisentan, an upcoming Sentry Ice, 3 subroutines means 3 net damage, but if you do know a bit about the runner's grip, you can knock that up to a very scary and maybe lethal 6 net damage. Now finally, Complete Image, a terminal Grey Ops operation. On its own, it might look like the most expensive neural EMP you've ever played, but if you know something about the runner's grip, that might be the most exciting flatline Jinteki can pursue. I'm so thrilled today to talk to you about the 3 upcoming Jinteki cards. I just wanted to show them up here at the top of the video for those who just wanted to look at them, but do stay tuned as we're going to jump into what we think we can do with these upcoming Crimson cards. Hello and welcome back to the Metropole Grid. My name is Andre. Thanks so much for tuning in. So as you just saw, we got 3 really exciting Jinteki cards from the upcoming Downfall cycle. And I just want to take some time to dive into these. Firstly, very important to say, this Thursday, 8:45 Eastern on both Twitch and YouTube, the normal time that we stream on, Pat is going to be here, and we're going to be trying some of these new cards out on Jinteki.net. So if you want to watch that or watch the VOD, that will be happening this Thursday. Otherwise, I just wanted to take some time to go through these 3 cards, give you a bit of my opinion, do some like background history, I suppose, and talk about what I think is possible with these cards. Now, I try to do this both for casual Netrunner, but also for competitive Netrunner, so hopefully there's something for everyone. So we're going to start here. This is Hyoubu Institute, Absolute Clarity, a 45-15 Identity Division Jinteki card. And it says the first time each turn you reveal a card, gain 1 credit. That's the new credit symbol for NISEI cards. And that's a new click symbol, so as a click action, reveal a card from the grip at random or the top card of the stack. No stone unturned. Ideally also, there'll be no stone unturned when we go through this. I also just want to say, the last week, when I was talking about all these spoilers that we have for Scoops Week, I kept saying, oh, we got some really cool stuff to reveal this week. Well, just watch, we have some really cool stuff to reveal. This is the beginning of the reveal card. Reveal. I was joking the whole time. Cool. I also do want to say before we get into it, excuse me once again, but just the templating on these cards, the art, all that sort of stuff, I've been really impressed with this. This stuff looks really good, so well done, NISEI. I know they spent a lot of work on that. So firstly, Hyoubu is a name that has to some extent come up before. I've only seen this on 1 card before. If anybody knows more about the Android lore, maybe from the RPGs or the world of Android didn't have a glossary to search it up, let us know if you can. But so far, Hyoubu has been attributed to this research facility that's pretty grim by the looks of it. It's hard also to figure out what the definition of this word means. This is the only 1 page I could find. Hyoubu seems to be related to something to do with war. Japanese, it says Ministry of War from Tang Dynasty, China. It has also a definition from Chinese as well. I don't fully know. Generally, most searches for the word Hyoubu produce an anime series. If you do know more, maybe I think we kindly all like to know. Another really cool thing I want to point out about this card before we go into that ability, Emilio Rodriguez is actually like a pretty prolific Netrunner artist. They have art on like a couple dozen cards, like my favorite, Project Atlas, also the full art of Melange Mining Corp, and cards like Lady Liberty. Emilio's been doing card art for a really long time, for almost all of Netrunner, so that's awesome to see that NISEI is working with some of the old artists too. I didn't know they were doing that. Cool, so let's talk about the card itself. The first time each turn you reveal a card, gain a credit. So you have an ability to do that. You can always look at cards in the runner's grip. You can see what's coming up on the top of the stack, and you get some value on top of that. And information is cool. Information is really valuable. I think Celebrity Gift, I looked through the corp side. It's not very obvious all the cards that say the word reveal on them, let alone it's very important that the corp does the revealing. If the runner's doing the revealing, you don't get the money, so the corp doing the revealing. There's actually a fair bit of cards that reveal, and it's not very obvious which ones those are, so I went through all of them. We're gonna be seeing most of them here. Shoutouts to NISEI. Celebrity Gift will give you an extra credit when you play it, and this is a card that's always kind of been like a joke on my channel. I never like to play this card, even though it is really good, and they gave me the ID that plays Celebrity Gift really well, so thanks, NISEI. I don't know if you did that on purpose. I think that's really funny. Information is cool. Information is really important in Netrunner. I've been enjoying playing a lot of 419 as a recent, and just spending an action to look at what's in the runner's grip is important. That gives you a fair bit of value. That knows what they're holding and knows what you have to play against. And you can make some assumptions. There's some matchups. Maybe you're playing a competitive Netrunner where you know what the deck lists look like. Maybe you're playing against your friend. You don't know what their deck is built or what they put in their deck. This gives you that absolute clarity to see and just see what they're holding on to. So you have some ideas. Maybe you know that they have the breaker to get through the ice that you want to rush your agenda behind. Maybe you know they're holding on to some powerful events. Cards like Stim Hack, maybe that's in their hand. Maybe Diversion of Funds you have to play around. Maybe you reach into the grip and you see an Apocalypse. And at that point, I don't actually know what the counterplay is. That's going to be really difficult. But having information on what the runner's holding is pretty valuable. And you're going to get a credit at the same time of doing that. Now, there's a caveat here. This is a random card from the grip. You can do this action 3 times a turn. You only get 1 credit because the reveal is the first time. But there's a chance that you'll see that same Apocalypse twice. It's exciting in some ways. It's like an HQ access. I guess HQ access more than R&D access, where you're reaching across the table, you're getting information. Everyone has bated breath. There's a chance you'll see the same card twice. So you can't tell how many Apocalypses they're holding, but I think that's fun. This card has interaction with the other player, especially if you're playing Netrunner in the physical world, where you get to reach over and interact with their board, which is always pretty fun. It's also worth saying that you can reveal the top card of the stack, and reveal means that both players see it. I think the reveal from the top of the stack for me is less interesting, or not less interesting, but maybe less exciting, because when the runner sees the top of their stack, they know what they're drawing into and they have more information to play the game with. And it's actually a pretty big help for the runner. Sure, you know as well, but there is a downside. I'm not saying a lot of people are playing Oracle May, but Oracle May shows both players what's up, and that's kind of a downside to Oracle May. So do watch out. If you keep revealing every turn the top of their stack, the runner has some pretty good information to work with. So do be careful for that. Now, with information, again, it's cool that you know what to play around, but there's also some cool cards that get synergy with that. Targeted marketing, if you know what's in their hand, you know what they want to play, you can go ahead, spend 1 influence, maybe stop them from playing it, or maybe get 10 credits when they actually break down and decide to. I think Standard Procedure is a really strong card, and this will be coming up a lot. There's a couple of yellow cards that are just really great in Hyoubu decks, and this is one of them. You name a card type and reveal the grip. So you're revealing, go ahead and get a credit off the top and then gain 2 credits for each card. You can spend your first click looking at the grip, you pull an event out of their hand, you gain a credit, then go ahead and Standard Procedure. Maybe next turn, and then you get at least 3 credits to start. You see their whole grip, and that's not bad. You'll probably get more than 3 credits. There's a lot of events. That's cool. That's really cool. It's really good in Netrunner to get an ability that, I don't know how to exactly say this. Maybe this is not exactly right, but it gives you value. It gives you additional money for doing something that you want to do anyways. This is my example of Symmetrical Visage. It's good to draw, and you're getting money for doing that good thing. Now, revealing a card from the runner's grip it is, I think, a universally okay thing to do, even a good thing to do, and it just gives you an extra bit of credit when you want to do that. And that's a big deal. A lot of corps will click for a credit almost every turn. A lot of times my turn when I'm playing Jinteki is install, take 2 credits, or install twice, take a credit. And instead of taking a credit, go ahead and find out a card in their grip at the same time. And that's really cool. Information is really powerful in this game. Now, do watch out about turn ordering. If that's the case, you don't want to do install, take a credit. You want to go ahead and use your ability first and then install, because you can then decide what to install or where based on what they're holding. That's the sort of thing that's going to come up on this channel. We'll call that bad turn ordering. We do it all the time. That's really fun. It gives you value just on a basic, it's kind of like the Paulina, right? Paulina might be a bit straightforward, maybe even boring. It gives you a lot of money through the whole game, but Hyoubu, if you're clicking for credits, a lot of people do that. It gives you more information, and that's kind of fun. Now, the cool thing about Hyoubu Institute, which, apologies, I'm going to say that name many different times through this whole video. I think there's actually a lot of different ways to play it and a lot of archetypes that it might build into. I was really excited to get these cards from NISEI because I actually had to sit down and go through the whole card list and see what sort of archetypes could work in this. Because sure, you can play that sort of basic value, but there's also a lot of exciting archetypes that I think Hyoubu branches out into. And the first one is something that I kind of been playing a lot of classically. This, mind you, is an identity that's no longer legal in NISEI organized play. If you're playing at your dinner table, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But the idea of rig denial. if I know what's in your hand, maybe I can reach over and destroy it. And this identity to some extent reminds me of a combination of some interesting identities. Scorpios, for instance, if you want to be a bit destructive. Harishandra, which is about, it's a bit about information. Now this card, I've seen very little play from this, I don't know. And it's also very similar to Kronos Protocol, which is actually probably the closest to this. Information plus damage. Maybe that's a good combination. And I think one of the biggest cards you might want to consider splashing this deck if you want to play that rig denial game is Salem's Hospitality. An alliance card, maybe this costs you no influence if you play enough yellow stuff. Name a card. Now the runner reveals their grip, so you're not going to get a credit, unfortunately, but you trash all copies of that card. So click one, you go ahead and use your Hyoubu ability. You see that in their hand is the breaker that they really wanted. Click two, Salem's, you've trashed it. Maybe you want to follow that out with an arc lockdown. Recursion is a thing in the game. Make it out of the game, but that's a really strong combo. It doesn't have to be a breaker, mind you. You can see a diversion of funds, that apocalypse we talked about earlier. You can reach over and take it out of their hand with the power of Salem. Top of Salem's is Ibrahim Salem, another card you can include in your deck if you've already made the alliance. It does give you more strength. No real revealing here, but you know their whole hand. This is pretty cool. This is also such a fun card. This is one of the new champ cards that came out at the Magnum Opus at Worlds, and this card is a lot of fun. It's one influence, and it's going to be coming up almost all the time when we talk about Hyoubu Institute. This card has some really strong subroutines. It lets you see the top 3 cards of the runner's stack, which gives you great information because you know they're going to generally be drawing those cards. So Hyoubu Institute, Salem's, all this stuff is really strong. You know what they drew into. But on top of that, they just revealed something. You revealed the top 3 cards of their stack. This is like a pop-up window. You gain a credit, they lose 3 credits, and then sometimes these other subroutine fires. And now you know what they're going to draw. That's incredible, let alone it helps you get that NBN alliance with a nice 1 influence ice you might consider playing 3 of. Now, again, nice stuff. You could play it for 1 influence in yellow. Caligoda Real TV lets you trash the top card of the stack. You can look at the top of their stack. If you don't want to wait for Caligoda's ability to fire and you see a breaker there, go ahead and trash it. And that's going to be strong. Again, maybe arc lock that down. And this is the basis of this sort of ability to reach into the runner's hand and disrupt them. Maybe it's the programs they need to interact with you at the end of the day. Sometimes you'll just keep them out. Or maybe it's the cool tech cards that you're scared of, or the cool... just any of the cool stuff they have. You got to slow them down somehow. Now, how do you play against that? A lot of times is you want to install your cards. That's the easiest way to get a Hyoubu. If you have that breaker in your hand, just slam it onto the table so you can't get lost to the Salem's Hospitality, to any net damage, stuff like that. But Jinteki, to some ways, can capitalize on that. If you're playing against a Jinteki deck that does a lot of net damage, that maybe wants to grind the runner's deck down to nothing, installing extra things can be bad. Sometimes you want to keep extra cards in your hand for net damage padding, and Hyoubu can capitalize on that, which is kind of cool. Now again, there's ways to make that damage deck, or that denial deck, excuse me, a bit stronger. Hatchet Job saw a bunch of play in Scorpio's decks back in the day. If they install that breaker, maybe return it to hand. You're already playing Salem's, you can trash it there. There's also some other fun Jinteki stuff. It's a Trap. Not a very potent card because the runner gets to do the decision here, but if they install the breaker and then they run, this doesn't have a subtype. Sometimes they'll just eat the breaker if they install nothing else, but you can also just play stuff that trashes programs or maybe does net damage. Now, this admittedly has a bit of a warning. Generally, runners will install a killer, a way to deal with sentries before they run into Jinteki Ice, so this might not fire. So that's not probably the best. Trash program subroutines on sentries in Jinteki are kind of weak. But there's other things that have trash program subroutines. I've been playing a fair bit of Tithonium lately. I kind of like it a lot, considering Paperclip isn't that common. So this became a lot more taxing for a lot of runners. And this can surprise a runner. And if they did install their breakers early and they didn't install a barrier breaker, this can surprise them. And talk about subroutines that trash programs on different, on not sentries. Grail Ice? This technically is still in rotation, right? Yeah, upstock, we're still good. Grail Ice has reveal abilities on them. If you want to go and spend your 9 influence to play all 3 copies of Galahad, which ends the run, Merlin, which does net damage, another really good thing, and then Lancelot, which trashes programs, probably the best thing on a rig denial deck. Every time, or excuse me, the first time a turn the runner hits this, you got to reveal a card, which lets you fire Hyoubu on the runner's turn very regularly, and that's a fair bit of money. Now, the really strong thing about these is the runner doesn't have all 3 types of breakers when you're playing that rig denial deck. You can really trash other things. You can do extra net damage, and you can kind of keep them out of the game. I think this is a really scary combination. On top of that, there's some other cool reveal cards. The Twins works pretty well in some ways with Grail Ice, but on its own, the Twins reveals cards, gaining credit, 1 influence. You can play that with cards like Kumainu, other scary net damage ice. That's pretty fun. Localized product line, another reveal card, costs a fair bit of influence, gives you a credit back from the Hyoubu ability. But maybe that's where how you get all 3 Lancelots into your hand, and now things are scary. Maybe that's how you turn the Twins on. I don't know. But probably the best card whenever it comes to a Rig Denial deck is Marcus Batty. And Marcus Batty does have the word reveal written on him, but it's revealing credits, not cards, so it doesn't count. But actually, Hyoubu is really good at setting this sort of stuff up. Recruiting Trip lets you pay no money to get Marcus Batty. You can pay a credit, which you'll get back because you revealed the Marcus Batty, and suddenly you're jamming behind an end the run trash program net damage subroutine on Lancelot. Mind you, if you haven't seen, Marcus Batty fires the trash program subroutine on the Lancelot before the runner can break it. So you trash the program they're going to use to break the Lancelot, so the Lancelot trashes another program. It's absolutely disgusting. And you can pull the Marcus Batties out. Talk about pulling things out. Fast track reveals agendas. So if you want to go really aggressive, really fast behind some of your scary ice, fast track, reveal an agenda, gain a credit. Not too bad at all. Top of that is some other really fun ice. Cards like Waver. This is honestly not a bad statted ice. This got a lot worse when it was not that great when it came out because a lot of runners were playing David, but this trace lets you see their whole grip. Unfortunately, the runner does the revealing here. It's not very common, or it's not very consistent who's doing it half the time, but this lets you trash cards on its own. If the trace fires, or if it's successful, excuse me, you do get to see their whole grip, which helps with Salims. And lastly to mention, Peeping Tom is cool because on encounter it lets you see the entire runner's grip, which means that your Salims and all that sort of stuff like that is pretty strong. On its own, it's probably too much influence and it's hard to capitalize on tags in Jinteki, but it's technically something you can do. As its own archetype, this sort of like rig denial damage targeted thing from Hyoubu is actually pretty scary. It reminds me a lot of Cronus Protocol, but I've done a fair bit of Cronus Protocol testing with that sort of selective damage, and I found a big way that it struggles is it can't drum up the necessary money to do its thing, and Hyoubu Institute kind of fills that gap. You still have that sort of targeted damage with things like Salims, where you can pull those cards out of hand, but it does give you money generally when you do your thing. Find out what's in their hand, make money. Show them the Grail Ice, make money. Find Marcus Batty, make money. Or find him for free, I suppose. But that's actually really exciting because that was where Cronus Protocol fell apart to me, is it didn't have enough money to res that 6-cost Merlin twice in a game in 3 turns. So that's pretty cool. Now, it's not just rig denial. I think there's actually some other interesting things you can do with Hyoubu. This might not be the best card to show as an example. This kind of is like the segue between selective ice destruction and assets, but a fair bit of assets have the word reveal on them. And I have played, it's not that common, but I have played non-net damage asset spam Jinteki at competitive level. And Tech Startup is a really cool card. You reveal the card, you gain the credit once per turn, you install the card, Turtlebacks gives you more money, stuff like that fires. But a lot of like really important reveal asset cards, or the asset cards have the word reveal on them. Political Dealings is a win condition for asset spam Jinteki, has reveal on it, gain that free credit. Lakshmi Smart Fabrics, a really strong asset card, also has the word reveal on it, get some extra money. And there's a lot of other stuff. Executive Bootcamp is a pretty good card. This now fires for free. Ramen Rai is a really cool card, lets you recur your strong assets. You're revealing a card, you're gaining a credit for that click you lost, not bad value. So maybe you're recurring the bioethics over and over again. Maybe you have some high trash cost assets you can recur. Things like Lady Liberty come to mind. There's some cool stuff you can do there. Executive Search Firm technically works. Not the hardest recommend there, but there's some interesting silly-ish stuff or like kind of weird stuff. Open Forum has a really good res to trash cost ratio, cost 1 influence, and it lets you protect the top of R&D by putting a card there, and it gives you a credit whenever it fires at the top of your turn. So you can keep that snare on top of your deck, and maybe you don't have to protect R&D that well. Who knows? Other fun cards like Bamboo Dome. I haven't seen this see a lot of play, but now whenever you're revealing and choosing what to draw, choosing what to put back, you make some money at the same time. Not a bad thing, and lets you set up some of the other fun reveal cards. Cards like Mutate. You want to get that big Chiashi up there? Maybe gain an extra credit while you're doing it. There's also some high influence assets that might be worth mentioning. Lily Lockwell reveals, Franchise City reveals, whatever. It's pretty expensive. Overall, I don't know if this could work. Again, we haven't seen all the Jinteki cards coming up. I think a lot of times if I want to spam assets in Jinteki, maybe I'll play Industrial Genomics. Matima Kunda is actually really good at spamming assets, but it's an interesting way to do it. It gives you a bit extra money, which maybe you need that to capitalize in a certain way. We'll see. Now, also there's a bit of a Glacier play in here. Jinja City Grid is a really strong Glacier building card, and this also reveals once a turn somewhat easily. And so now you can be installing ice on your remote server, on your central servers, and gaining money at the same time. Maybe that's the money you need to jam. But compare that with something in Jinteki like Palina Agroplex. Maybe you're drawing 2 cards at the start of your turn. Maybe that's how you build your Jinja City Grid really fast. That's pretty cool stuff. And there's some cool Glacier stuff. Gatekeeper gives you a credit back. Building blocks. Where's that Chiashi for only 4 instead of 5? 4 influence. Maybe you don't want to do that, but it's cool. Unfortunately, Matima Kunda is really good right now, so it's going to be a hard push, at least for the competitive side. But like, there's still a fair bit of like, maybe a lot of these things together are really good. Like maybe Jinja with a City Grid with a tech startup to find a key asset. Maybe all these things together with your celebrity gift can build like a pretty reasonable ability deck that this fires a fair bit. It's also worth pointing out just about all the decks or all the cards that hide agendas reveal them. So like Attitude Adjustment, Drudge Work, Shannon Claire. Oh, Plan B also works. Those are all pretty fun and they have the word reveal on them. So if you're running big agendas in a Glacier deck, maybe that helps you out. Also, if a runner plays this against you, oh my god, what a mistake. That would be fun. I hope that never happens. I hope that happens actually. That's Hyoubu Institute. There's a fair bit of cards that have the word reveal on them, and they're scattered across these different archetypes. There's a bunch of assets. There's a bunch of like cool hand destruction stuff and like rig destruction stuff. And then there's a bit of Glacier support. And that's really cool. It lets you build like a flexible deck. Like maybe the deck is, wait, can you do it? I guess you can spend all your influence on Jinja plus like Grail. It's probably not great, but it's really cool. And when I got this ID to start, I had to spend a fair bit of time sitting down and thinking what's possible with it. Again, there's a lot more Jinteki cards coming with this one, but I'm really excited for this. Just on its own, seeing the card, you click for credit a lot of turns, and seeing a card in the runner's grip while you do it is not bad at all. Second card we have is Saisentan. It is a ice, it's a sentry, AP, and observer. Observer being a really fun subtype. It's 5 to res, 2 strength, and it says when the runner encounters this ice, choose a card type. 3 subroutines, all are the same, do 1 net damage, and if you trash a card of the chosen type, go ahead and do another net damage. It's 3 influence, and it's important to know card type is one of the 4 types, so either event, hardware, resource, or program. It's not subtype, so it's 4. It's not that many options, which makes it pretty easy. Also, this art is pretty great. Eyes plus knives, it's unfortunate. Saisentan, it, according to this website, means cutting edge, leading edge, forefront, ultra fine. I'm not sure whether this means about whether it means more about how sharp something is or how like future forward it is, but either way, that's pretty cool. So Saisentan capitalizes on information. If you know what the runner's holding, you can do up to 6 net damage with a single card. Now you have to be pretty lucky. And all the stars kind of have to align because you choose 1 type at the beginning and you can't change it per subroutine. But that's still pretty fun and it's pretty exciting. And if you've had spend at least 1 click seeing, oh, they have a program in their hand or they have an event or whatever, this gets a lot of value. It's not unlikely that this does on a face check 4 net damage, maybe even 5. I think 4 net damage is probably at least the average. And it's not that hard to get information. Again, slot machines, so good in a Hyoubu deck, let alone on its own. If you know what's in their hand or if you know what they're going to draw into, Saisentan is not even a risk anymore. You knew they just drew 2 resources. They didn't install them. They're in there. Go ahead and hit them. Again, cards like Standard Procedure, so cool with this card. You know everything in their hand. Cards like Scarcity Resources is also like really important. With Scarcity Resources, the resources sometimes get stuck in hand, maybe sometimes they throw it out, but if you can control how the runner is installing, this face check gets a bit scarier, and Scarcity Resources is a really strong card. As Tech has the same ability, where you can kind of control what's in their hand. I don't know whether you want to splash it in as Mari. That would be kind of fun, but it's cool. It's also like really easy. There's sometimes like just good events that will clump up in the runner's hands throughout the whole game. I think a lot of times you might just want to call event. Almost all the time, right? Just cards like Stim Hack, cards like Inside Job, like these generally hang out in the runner's hands for a long time. And then you can go ahead and just like zap a couple of them out if this face check fires. And in the early game, I don't know how often a face check for a sentry is going to fire in Jinteki. That's kind of the issue with sentries in Jinteki. It's the one faction that the runner is most likely to respect that sort of early damage, or the just like the net damage on ice. So, you know, it's kind of a trade-off, but it's really fun when it does. I think this card's also really exciting. It's very similar to some ways like Hyoubu, where there's more interaction, where there's like an exciting call, and then you see it ripping apart the runner. So you see the first net damage, okay, I didn't hit an event, the second one did, but then on the second part of that extra net damage, it hit the second event I knew was in there. So now there's only one left in 3 cards or what have you, and that's actually really fun and really tense. There is a small chance the runner is going to face check on this turn 1. You're going to name whatever type you want, and it's just going to flat out kill the runner. That's technically possible. It's very unlikely. I don't know how unlikely, but at least when that happens, the players are going to have a fun story to talk about. This is also very comparable to Komainu, and Komainu always sees play to some extent. It's really scary face check. It'll wipe your whole hand out. But at the end of the day, we have 2 5-strength, 5-cost, low-strength sentries with multiple subroutines. Now there's one big problem with Komainu, and Komainu gets absolutely hosed by tech cards. Cards like Hunting Grounds that dodge the when encountered ability, and Femme Fatale. If you end up Femme Fataling a Komainu, it actually gets no subroutines and you bypass it for free. Now Saisentan will never have as many subroutines as a Komainu could have, and does get countered by cards like Hunting Grounds and Femme Fatale, but at least not that bad. These subroutines still work if the when encounter is skipped. You just don't get that extra net damage. It's still a pretty fine piece of ice, and I kind of like that design a fair bit. It's really not fun playing a Komainu when it gets Femme, but I guess that's the trade-off you have for a really scary piece of ice. At the end of the day, it's an ice that can kill, flat out, on its own, and we haven't seen that in a long time. I think Shinobi's the last piece of ice that represented more than hand-sized damage. Again, Shinobi's very conditional, and for Saisentan to be lethal, you have to be pretty lucky. If you have some information, it's easier to capitalize on that, but that's kind of cool to see. It is important to know, though, a lot of the times in Netrunner, your ice is not going to fire, so the value of your ice is largely calculated on just like a financial calculation. How much does it cost to res, and on average, how much is the runner going to cost to break it? And the numbers on Saisentan are okay. They're not bad. You could do a lot worse. Mimic is probably one of your better options to get through this. I don't know how common this is in your meta, but if you res this for 5 and the runner always breaks it for 3, it's not the best trade-off, especially if the face check never fires. MK Ultra, which is pretty common right now, is actually a bit more taxing. That's going to cost you 6. That's a fair bit more taxing to get through all of this. It's actually pretty cool because when you encounter this, you choose the card type first. So say you say something like, I don't know, resource, and then the runner sees like, oh, I have no resources in hand, this is fine. They can go with MK Ultra and decide to only break 2 subroutines and then just take 1 net damage. It's cool. When this thing fires first, then the runner gets to choose to break it. It's fun like that, right? On the Shaper side of things, Ika gets through this relatively well. You don't have to boost strength, and Nanotech also gets through it just as good, always just as good as Mimic, so not too good for the Shapers. On the criminal side, it gets a bit better. If you're playing Mongoose, it's clumsy to get through this. It costs up to 4 credits. Femme is pretty easy. If you Femme this, it doesn't really matter because you get through it for 3 credits anyways, so it's not that bad. And I guess Sunny, if it's worth mentioning, deals for this for 4 credits, which is okay. That's the same for Komainu. So at the end of the day, generally you get through this for 3 to 4 credits, which is not terrible. That makes it to some ways comparable to Tsurugi, but a big part about Tsurugi is that Tsurugi ends the run, which is very valuable when you're rushing in a remote server and stuff like that. But on its own, not that far off from Tsurugi. Generally 3 for Tsurugi, 4, 1 more to res though, and Saisentan's at 3, so this is probably pretty playable. Again, you don't have to play this in Hyoubu. You don't actually have to play a deck that gets information by the runner's grip. Go ahead and jam this in your Mitima Kundo Glacier deck. Throw this down like you would the early Cortex Lock, and it will rip through the runner. Cortex Lock does get worse in the late game. Saisentan still stays pretty relevant. Eventually they'll get the breaker down, but on its own, even without the sort of support from this ability or from seeing what is in the runner's grip, or at the top of their stack, and then their grip, this is not that bad of a piece of ice. I like it. It's scary. It's another Komainu to worry about, and Jinteki has scary face check ice. That's great. Finally, we have Complete Image. a terminal gray ops operation. So if you're newer to the game, terminal is a relatively new mechanic as far as mechanics go in Netrunner. It means you can only play it as your last click, or you can play whenever, it just ends your turn basically. And you can only play this if the runner has 3 or more agenda points, and they made a successful run during their last turn. That's actually a new condition we've never seen on any card, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now you name a card, mind you, not a card type. You have to name the name of the card. Then you go ahead and do a net damage. And if you trash that named card, you get to repeat this process again, which means you get to name another card. You could, in theory, name the same card again, and then repeat and repeat and repeat. You don't have to keep paying the cost, just repeat the effect. So in theory, if you know, or if you don't know, every card in the runner's hand, you could play this once they have 3 agenda points and made a successful run, and you can like rip through their whole hand. I think the numbers are, if you know every single card in the runner's grip, if they have a 5 hand size, if my numbers are right, it's like a 0.008% chance of being lethal if you know every card in hand, which is super unlikely, but it's just a numbers game at this point, right? Now, again, very important also to trash. This is a trashable operation. We've seen a fair bit of powerful cards that can be trashed. It's a cool way to make operations, it makes runners able to interact with operations. Largely, you see something like hard-hitting news in their hand, one of the strongest terminal operations in the whole game, and you can't trash this, so you just have to respect it. This one, you have a couple outs as the runner. It makes it also more interesting to protect this. We see you. So this clause here, play only if the runner has 3 or more agenda points, is really interesting to me. Hard-hitting news has been a big card to shape what NBN play has been like basically since it came out, and it allows you to punish the runner immediately when they interact with you, and that has proven to be a problem in a lot of ways. Firstly, cards like, I don't know, this card is now banned, but the idea was that you don't have to respect this turn 1. So if the runner needs to run and trash Sensei's Actors Union, they can get hard-hitting news on turn 1, or technically I guess turn 2. And that's a huge issue, and it can just kind of shut them out of the game. And I like the fact that what could potentially be a scary card has windows of when you don't have to respect it, so you can't get blown out turn 1. It also makes this like fun surprise where you stumble upon a 3-point agenda and then you steal it. Makes it similar to other cards like Midseason Replacements, a card I played a heck of a lot when it was in the standard card pool. And it gives you these sort of like these stories of, or these feelings of, oh shit, I have stolen an agenda. Oh, something bad is going to happen. And I like the fact that a complete image is not something you have to respect right away. I think it would be interesting to see what hard-hitting news would look like with the same similar sort of text on it. Maybe it's too bad, I don't know, but it would help against the asset spam turn 1. But maybe NBN needs that, I don't know, it's hard to say. Now on its own, this card represents a very expensive and early EMP. But it also represents a card that can just flat out kill the runner. And one of the best things you can possibly do is soften the runner up. And based on the conditions here, there's some pretty easy ways to do it. If you want to use your restricted card as of the modern most wanted list on Obokata Protocol, if the runner runs this and steals it, they generally will suffer 4 net damage if they choose to steal it. And now both of these conditions are on. If they end their turn with 1 card in hand, they are dead to complete image. You can go ahead and Hyoubu and reveal the only card in their hand. You know the name. Go ahead and play complete image. You'll kill them. You'll name the card and you go ahead and do another card. If they end with 2 cards in hand and you can just Hyoubu once, maybe you actually want to Hyoubu the second time as well. You have a 50-50 chance of seeing the second card. You can play complete image and you can kill them. Maybe you actually already know what's in their hand because you played cards like, again, Slot Machine or Slot Machine. Slot Machine's really good. You can go ahead and name it because you know every card in their hand, and you can just go ahead and maybe even fire this off when they have 3 cards in their hand and hope for that, like, what's the chance of that? It's 1 in 3, then 1 in 5, so like 15-17% chance to win the game. That's not bad. And there's other agendas to help you with this. Maybe Fetal AI will put them above 3 points to take 2 net damage. Plus Ben Musashi makes it even harder. Guarded by a data loop, guarded by a Kakugo. It's not that hard to get this condition to fire, where they have made a successful run. They are now at 3 points and they have few cards in hand, and you have the way to punish them. It's very similar to Punitive Counter-Strike, but less economically intensive in some ways, which is pretty cool. It's also in faction, which means you can use your influence on other cards. Slot Machine is really good with this. This also is very kind of interesting out of faction with Cronus Protocol. That's kind of the issue with this card. Not only do you need to name the card, but you also have to hit the card. So if they're holding 4 cards in hand and you want to hit that 1 and 4, it's kind of difficult. And Cronus Protocol helps you with that to some extent. Like, you can play this, you have to still name the card before you see their grip, but then you can see their grip and then hit that card. So this is guaranteed to always do 2 net damage as long as you know 1 card in their hand, which is interesting. Maybe that makes it easier to kill them. Again, slot machine. But there's also some other ways to make this a lot easier to fire. Cards like Waiver. Again, Salem's Hospitality is another way to just like remove certain cards from their hand. Maybe they're holding on to 2 copies of Stimhack. Go ahead and play Salem's, remove those 2. Now you've seen every card in their hand. Now you can finish them off with Complete Image. Maybe you just want to like kind of knurl them first. They're at 4 cards in hand. You play knurl, and now you still know what's in their hand because the slot machine's really cool and you can Complete Image them. It's a 50% chance to win the game if they're holding 2 cards in hand. And you know what both of them are. And that's really exciting. You can kind of wear them down. And it's a really exciting card that you can put the game down to like a 50-50 if they get to low hand size. That's kind of cool. I hope that doesn't happen. But again, at the end of the day, while this might sound really scary, it might sound really intimidating, it is a trashable card. So you can go ahead and trash this. 2 is not a lot to ask for. They can always go ahead and archive memories this back if they need to, but that's a cool thing about the design. This is terminal, so it's not like they can play more than 1 a turn, so you don't have to worry about that. That's the cards we have. And I just want to point out, this is Snare. And there's some interesting things about these 3 cards. I think they work really well together, but neither of these cards have the word reveal on them. And if you look at the bottom of these cards, or I guess sometimes on the side, this is card number 39, and we have 44, and we have 45. So there is at least, what, 4 cards in the middle there that we haven't seen? And there might be more after. So we haven't seen all the Jinteki cards. Now, there's a lot of key things about Jinteki that people think when they think of Jinteki, things like assets and ambushes. I'm also assuming there's going to be cards in this cycle that have the word reveal on it. But even with these 3 cards alone, and we just added these 3 cards to the Jinteki card pool, there's some really exciting things you can do off the bat. We've seen like some pretty straightforward cards so far being revealed, either in Scoops Week or before, and then we've seen some more complicated cards with a lot more words on them, with a lot more interesting abilities, and these I think land somewhere in the middle. I think the text on here is really subtle, but like how to make a competent deck that capitalize on this, I think is a really fun adventure. And almost all of these cards and abilities have some fun gambling attached to it and have some fun interaction. As the corp, you get like pseudo HQ axes. As the ice, you get to make a cool decision that can really affect how the game goes. And Complete Image is just like a hell of an exciting way to end the runner. I'm really excited for Jinteki, and I don't play that many net damage cards. Again, we haven't seen everything, so maybe there are going to be some more Mushin cards for those who like Mushining. Maybe we'll see more assets and ambushes. All the assets and ambushes, as mine do say reveal, but the runner reveals them, so that sucks. But this is really cool. Again, shoutouts to NISEI. Let me know in the comments below what you're excited for, what sort of combos I haven't seen, what kind of decks you think are possible with this. Again, on Thursday, we'll be trying out these cards. Pat and I will be playing them online, so hopefully you enjoy that. And if you don't know, it is Scoops Week is what it's called. So all these content creators are revealing cards this week. That's us, but do check out. Some of these cards are already out and revealed. So if you want to see some more stuff upcoming, I think the release date is March 18th. That's relatively soon. 65 cards will be coming out, I'm assuming for every single faction. So that's really excited. Again, shout outs to NISEI for reaching out. It's really cool. But let me know what you think. We'll be here on Thursday to play these cards out, but I'm really excited for these Jinteki cards. A lot of fun to reveal. Thanks for watching. Ciao.